everybody, I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, normally, this would be the part where I'd say major spoiler alert ahead, but we are still on the journey toward the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, and along the way, we are revisiting all of the past X-Men and Deadpool movies, and today is no different. Today, we are reviewing and revisiting X-Men Dark Phoenix. So without further ado, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from X-Men Dark Phoenix, it's Jon Jon Rico!
Hey,
I
did it.
We almost did. Let's not say it yet. We're not
No,
completely
we watched
there.
this movie. We got through it. I mean,
we got through this movie. If you saw my hesitation and my pause, because normally I say our favorite moments from, but I don't know how many favorite moments there really were from this movie.
Yeah.
I try my best, and I did find some things I liked, and we talked about this before we started recording. There were parts of this movie that we enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
There were parts that we didn't enjoy, and there were parts that were just, well, they were in the movie. So I immediately, literally the first thing I put down on our rundown was, this was a little rough to watch.
It's not easy.
The problem is that we are so close to Deadpool and Wolverine, and I am so excited. And we've, gone through recapping all of these other really fun movies and stuff that sometimes I hadn't even watched before, but I enjoyed big chunks of them and stuff like that, or I hadn't watched in a really long time, and it reminded me of parts I really liked. This is the first time I've watched this, and I'm glad I didn't watch it originally, because I would have been really disappointed, because I still think, just like what I thought for kind of the early class, like the younger class of X-Men, these are good actors. And you know what I mean? I just feel bad that this was kind of like their last run at these characters.
Yeah, the cards they were dealt.
Yeah, I just feel bad. Man. Anyway, yeah. So this is not going to be us just kind of shitting on this movie the whole time. There were, like I said, there were parts that I liked. Not as many, but some parts I liked. First one I just got to say, and this includes my reference, is Magneto Beast team up was awesome. That whole talk before they even go, but the way that kind of, Magneto kind of goes, when I find her, I'm going to kill her type of thing. And then Beast or Hank at that point goes, I know. It reminded me of, there's an episode from the series Archer, and Archer, goes on a warpath. And it's one of my favorite episodes of Archer in general. And that's just what they do. They go on a rampage. And I was like, I could have signed up for a full movie on this. Just them destroying things along the way on the way to find Jean. But that was my first reference, and kind of just what I thought of as that. I would have liked to see that. Also, we get potentially the greatest line of the movie. Or not even potentially, the greatest Scott Summers / Cyclops line, or at least my favorite.
If you touch her, I will fucking kill her.
I just thought, coming from Cyclops in general, I was like, okay, I
was a well-delivered line.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, there were a couple, like I said, I'm gonna get into takeaways. There's a couple things I enjoyed, and look, Evan Peters is still Quicksilver in the movie.
Yeah.
Sadly, yeah, he's not there for very much. He's there, but he's not there for very much. There are some cool, when he teams up with Nightcrawler towards the beginning of the movie, I did enjoy that when they were kind of working together, because they have the speed and the teleportation together is kind of
In
cool.
the in space, yeah.
Yeah.
In
I
the
thought that
space.
was kind of cool. That
Yeah.
in the space? In
Yeah.
space? Yeah. But
In
anyway,
space.
yeah. Rico, what were some of your instant reactions from Dark Phoenix?
Yeah, the first word that kind of comes to my mind when I think of this movie is just to me it's bland. I think it's a very bland movie overall. I think there's elements of a good story in there. I think they're just kind of tossed to the side or just not addressed at all in this movie. I like particularly to me the fact that we don't really get much again of the Charles and Eric friendship dynamic. That I also said was kind of missing in Apocalypse a bit as well. We get the wrap up moment with this. It's very like Dark Knight Rises of them when they meet each other at the cafe and
Yeah.
play and play chess together. But yeah. So, but one of the things that really felt really clear to me in this movie is that, especially a lot of like the more veteran actors of this newer cast, like James McAvoy, and especially Jennifer Lawrence, is that they didn't seem like they were very interested in being in this movie. I can always give credit to Fassbender because he always gives his kind of his best effort when it comes to Magneto, and I always find him really captivating to watch. No matter even if in a bad movie like this, I think he still is really interesting to watch in this movie. But yeah, I think there's just like this. You can definitely tell with Jennifer Lawrence at this one because especially like with how big her stardom had grew in the years during her time in this movie, like especially when she joined in First Class, she was still just kind of like breaking out. And then of course she became like a mega star over the course of the years. And there were quite a few years in between like the movies too. And so I think she was having fun with Days of Future Past, but once like Apocalypse and this movie came out, they weren't really having as much fun with the movies anymore. And you can tell in this kind of like you could just tell how it's a very unmotivated performance, and you can just I think that you can kind of feel it in the moment when our character dies. You don't really feel that big of an impact. It's just like, okay, yeah, now it's time to like move on because she like we were kind of ready to move on from that character. It seemed like our after Apocalypse anyway. So yeah, so I thought that was very interesting how like we just kind of threw this main character away early on, and the impact was very like minimal. It felt like, even though it does it doesn't have an impact on the story, like in the ways the character actors and obviously are driven after that. But the actual moment itself just felt very like, huh, okay. So yeah, and then again, also not emphasizing on things like Scott and Jean and their relationship, and a movie like this would have been really good for the story. I feel like, and yeah, the big thing for me is just really not getting that Charles and Eric dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, I do have to say, I was genuinely shocked when Raven gets killed off, right? Like right then, I was like, oh shit! Like, because like I said,
Yeah.
I hadn't seen the
Kind of
movie.
Loganed her.
Yeah, I mean, she just went out like that. I was like, oh shit, she's dead. Like, we still could have got the same effect if she had been really, really injured.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And just kind of been taken back, but Jean thinks that she killed her type of thing and flees. And that would still give the same motivation to Beast to be angry at Charles and storm off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it still would have been very similar reactions. Like, oh, Raven's in a coma from, you know what I mean? Like, it could have been, but we still could have had her. It was just weird. I was not expecting that.
Characters are not what they were in past movies. Like we were talking about Charles earlier. Like he feels like a very different character than the past movies, and to the point where it's just like this doesn't feel like the Charles that I want to see in these, especially like the very empathetic version of Charles that we see in First Class. I just didn't feel like the way he's grown over the 30 years, because apparently these guys never age and it's been 30 years through these movies. That's another thing for me too, is like they don't like even make a slight effort to even like kind of address like the slight change in time. I would have liked that, at least a little make a job would have gone a long way, but like, yeah, I just think like there's just character choices in here that just kind of feel like they don't capitalize off the stuff that was set up before it.
Yeah, 1992, and then in 2000, Charles Xavier looks like Patrick Stewart.
Yeah,
like, 8 years were rough.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's just like, come on.
But you want to get to some big takeaways?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I'm gonna kick off big takeaways with another like bright spot and something that I enjoyed from this movie. And I mean, it's really like no surprise. And I'm not gonna mention Quicksilver here, even though I still really want to see Evan Peters Quicksilver in the MCU. But Angry Nightcrawler is a fucking beast. Like, I could have watched 20 minutes of that, of him just like bamfing all over the place and whipping people around that train. Oh man, that was awesome. I would have loved to see more of that. Like I enjoyed that.
Really
I just thought that was such a cool part. Like I do think, like I said in the beginning of this, I think all of these actors were really good with their characters, type of thing.
Yeah, just not used well.
And it makes me sad that they didn't get anything after this. Like they didn't get another try. They didn't get to do anything to kind of leave on a better note, type of thing, because there were really cool parts. Like, and especially this one, I loved seeing angry Nightcrawler like doing this. I mean, I would put this, still under, but up with, where we get the I guess grown up at that point Nightcrawler in X2 type of thing, because that opening of X2 was absolutely insane. Obviously, iconic for that movie and just the character in general, but like this for me, I loved seeing this progression, because then it's like, you can see, that ability of, you don't want to piss, this mutant off, because like that is his potential. He can really take out.
It takes a lot to get him to that point too. So that's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I just thought it was really cool, and it was a really cool part, and I would have totally enjoyed seeing longer that scene type of thing. But Rico, what were some of your takeaways?
So okay, there's a couple things I really did like in this movie overall. I think some of the action is actually really, really well done. There's a couple moments in there that don't look as great. We were talking before, right before we were recording, but we hadn't started the actual recording yet. But the shot of Vuk, I guess, Jessica Chastain's character, which I'll talk about her a little bit. But Magneto just shooting a bunch of guns at her, and just kind of like, there's parts like that look really rough. But there's also moments, I think, in that same scene it's on the train, right? Where he takes out multiple versions of the Bari aliens, and one of them particularly, like, he stabs a dude with, like, in the head, like with a blade or like a shard of metal with it. It looks particularly brutal. It's like one of the more brutal things I've seen them do as far as like Magneto's powers. But so I like some of that stuff is really well done. But man, the end of Apocalypse, we were teased with some really cool costumes, like really cool costumes. I was really excited to see like this movie kind of like, show them more in action. But we get like more of the Grant Morrison new X-Men style suits, which is just kind of like sweaters and pants, and it doesn't look great to me. And I feel like really this is a testament to the Deadpool movies, because I think they've really nailed like what like a good X-Men uniform looks like in the universe. I think, and maybe First Class is kind of like my second favorite as far as like how X-Men uniforms should look in the movies. The other ones, in my opinion, just don't look that great. But yeah, and then another thing I noticed, like when you go back and watch Deadpool 2, I think they were filming this movie while they were like around that same time. And so when we see them in that little cameo performance in Deadpool 2, they're actually Quicksilver's wearing a Nirvana shirt, so they're supposed to be this version of the X-Men, which I think is very interesting. Yeah. But so one thing but another thing I did really love is, or not love, I didn't love this at all. They really wasted a great, actually the opposite of love. They wasted a great actress in Jessica Chastain. And based on some of the stuff that I heard that they were going to do in this movie, it sounds like they were going to do Princess Lilandra, who we just saw in X-Men 97. The princess that Charles was off to space with. It sounds like they were going to do an element where they're going to try and bring that character in some form, and I think Jessica Chastain was actually rumored to play her. And then also like the alien species that she's part of were originally supposed to be Skrulls, I believe. And then there was like the whole thing with the Marvels using it, and so they had to kind of like change things up last minute. So I think that's why they just kind of look like kind of bland looking alien characters. They kind of remind me a little bit like the aliens from Signs a little. Almost. Yeah. But man, just kind of seeing her kind of just be like this like wooden face character that doesn't really have much to do. She's twisting some people's sternums inside out every now and then, which looks kind of gross, but also a little bit weird at the same time. But I thought it was really interesting that she didn't even know the name of her own character until she saw the movie, which I think is like, it's like Vuk or something like that, VUK. And I'm just like, man, that's just like what she's such a great actress too, and I just think it would have been great if we saw her as a character like Lilandra or something like that. as opposed to just kind of like taking over someone who was hosting a dinner party and doesn't really have much of a personality to her. But yeah, just talk about a missed opportunity for like a cool villain who doesn't really like. I don't think they really offer much to the story other than just being like people for the X-Men to fight because they're trying to get Jean's power as well.
Yeah, it was really confusing because at one point I get that they were I got that they were kind of the villains to begin with, but like at one point I almost thought like before she reminded me that they wanted to just, obliterate everybody on the planet. For a second I was like, "Oh, she's going to take the power from Jean and then Jean will be fine." And then like, "Cool, she's not that bad." And then immediately, they figure out, they go, "Oh shit, she's going to kill everybody." But like for a split second there, I was like, "Oh, we could have had, what we could have had." Like now that you're saying that, and that could have been the connection. Whoa, completely different movie if it turned out that they weren't the bad guys and that she was, the princess type of thing, and like maybe Charles does like a sacrificial thing and doesn't end up dying, but everybody thinks that they die, and that's the cliffhanger. And oh man, could have been
what could have been.
Could have been exactly like X-Men 97 where like he's away, like
yeah. And then I heard there were elements where they were trying to bring back the Hellfire Club with Emma Frost coming back as a character and leading a new version of the Hellfire Club that probably wanted some form of Jean's power. So it kind of seems like they kind of mixed in like the Skrull and Hellfire Club storyline into one thing with the Dabari aliens. And just kind of been like, hey, they're like the Phoenix took out our home, but also we want to take this power for ourselves to like make new life. Essentially, is that what they said? But I feel like the Hellfire Club would have wanted a little bit more evil purposes. Yeah, for sure.
But you want to get to some predictions / spitball?
Let's spitball.
All right, why don't you kick us off?
All right. So okay, this is probably the first movie where I really can't think of a ton of things that I really want to see transferred over. Like I have no interest in seeing the Dabari aliens again. We have shapeshifters, sorry. And I just one too many. I think we didn't even. It would have been cool to get some kind of like dynamic between Mystique and the shapeshifters. We don't really get any kind of interaction between them, but being like, hey, I can do that too, or something like that. We could have had some like moments where they could have had some fun with the characters and stuff like imagine that, right? But one thing I actually do like is we get a version of Genosha introduced in this movie, which I was actually surprised that we'd never really gotten any kind of version of Genosha in live action in any of the movies leading up to this. And I thought it was an interesting move of Eric, like to have Eric be running like this kind of colony of mutants. Because it kind of seemed like he ended Apocalypse seemingly on good terms with Charles. So I'm just like, again, they do like these big time gaps. So you're just like wondering what happened in between these time gaps, and just like, man, there's still cool stuff to explore there.
Right.
And I would have liked to seen some of that. But yeah, we get a brief like kind of moment with in Genosha. We get the whole stuff with Jean over there and the soldiers and the helicopter, which I think was pretty wild. And then of course Hank goes in there to visit later on. But yeah, I would like to see like them really kind of dive fully into like the whole Genosha thing in the MCU. I think maybe we can start setting some seeds up there. Possibly, I was always thinking that maybe like Tiamat, the Celestial, would have been a cool way to kind of like maybe form a Genosha style thing there, or like I guess like maybe the other option was that they're going to start like mining material off of him, and that was going to be something that could have played into the mutant kind of storyline as well. But again, I would like to see some kind of like version of Genosha when the whole mutant storyline starts working its way into the main MCU. And we also get a cool cameo from Dazzler in this too, when the students all have their little the little shindig out in the woods.
Rager.
Yeah, the
Rager in the woods.
Dude. Yeah. And I think it was really cool. I like the way like they just kind of show them all portaling in, like, yeah, we just got a spot, we're gonna go here. And then of course poor Storm, like her biggest job in the whole movie is being the ice maker of the party. Poor Storm. But we've gotten quite a bit of rumors of Taylor Swift possibly being in Deadpool and Wolverine, whether it's Lady Deadpool or possibly Dazzler. I've heard a lot of ties between her and Dazzler, which I think is more fitting given she's a singer, of course. So I guess if you were going to do it, this would be the time to do it. But also I'm also wondering like when we're going to actually get like a proper version of Dazzler that could actually be like worked into a story somehow, a character we can actually focus on, right? So yeah, that's that. I would say Genosha and Dazzler are probably my two biggest things here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I totally agree with that. The rumor for the Captain America movie is that they're already starting to mine from there, and that's where we get the
Yeah,
Anti-Man.
yeah. I think now seeing that trailer, we're seeing that they're actually going to get some answers to what Tiamat's been up
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like you, I mean, I'm still gonna say I really hope we see some form of Evan Peters, Quicksilver, like in the Void, or like Deadpool goes, yeah, you can come with us. We teased everybody in that other MCU property, like let's bring you in. Like I think that would be a funny gag, even if he doesn't actually play Quicksilver, but just to have it be a gag where Deadpool pulls him over and goes, "We teased you guys enough with WandaVision." Like just to do that, I think would be funny. The other thing that I think would be really funny, and it could only happen in like the beginning of the movie, when we're dealing with his Wade's current universe still, is if he goes back to the expansion and we have another scene where they're talking and he's talking to, one or two people, whether it's Negasonic or if it's Colossus or both of them or something like that, and they're walking down the hallway and we see the open door and we see the younger cast in that door, almost exactly like the same shot from Deadpool 2, but instead of them shutting the door, he turns around and shuts the door. He goes, "That'll be enough." And he just like shuts the door. It just says like symbolic, like we're not like you guys aren't the mutants for the MCU type of thing, and we're not like doing this anymore. I just think that would be a ridiculous throwaway, but it's on the level of Deadpool. Like we were saying, the opening of Deadpool 2, he was saying "fuck Logan," like right because it immediately followed the Logan movie. Like that would be the level of Deadpool comedy that I could see him saying like kind of F you to those guys and like closing the door. I'm not saying that I hope it happens because it would be a slam on their characters, but I'm just saying I could see that being a gag. That's all I'm saying. What I am hoping, like I said, is some joke or some form of Evan Peters Quicksilver coming in, whether it's in the Void, whether it's him actually bringing him into the MCU, something like that. Like that's all I can really hope for from this movie itself. Genosha's a great idea though. Like I mean, I can't imagine we're not going to start getting some cool mutant storylines once we already had like a bunch of interviews with Kevin Feige now saying that Deadpool and Wolverine is kind of kicking off this mutant
saga, the mutant era,
mutant saga, mutant era type of thing. So yeah, I mean the sky's the limit of what we could potentially see. I think it'd be really cool though. And I think, there are so many comic like story arcs and storylines and stuff that they can incorporate in that. Yeah, I think we're definitely gonna, after the multiverse saga is over, which, should be over after Secret Wars, I believe is when we get that's going to be the boot, or the reboot, the soft reboot. I said boot, but the soft reboot. I think, yeah, we're going to start seeing like little bits and pieces throughout this now, because I guess they're going to kind of coexist.
Yeah, we're going to dive into mutant stories right after that, I think.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting, and I'm really excited for that. And kind of, the thing I'm also really excited for, I guess, with both Deadpool and Wolverine and the future of like the mutant saga, is kind of seeing who they bring in as their kind of, first batch of mutants type of thing. Right. And I'm not even going on actors. I'm just talking about like characters. Yeah. We've talked about this a long time ago, and for a long time we've been talking about this of kind of the team that they're going to put together and what they're going to do. And so I'm just really interested to kind of see who's going to kind of break that wall and kind of get us interested in the mutant saga and stuff like that.
Yeah, I really hope it's Storm, man, because I think there's a character that's really hasn't been done justice in live action as her, especially when we've seen how great the character could be in a show like X-Men 97.
Oh, absolutely.
I think X-Men 97 has really shown the wide scope of storytelling that these characters are really capable of having. Because you get, again, these movies have been really fun to watch, but they're still pretty self-contained in Earth. Aside from this movie, it's like the really first time that we actually get like this kind of space driven adventure. I guess it's not really space driven, but it's started by something that happens in space. Yeah. I do like the way they kind of make the Phoenix Force a space a cosmic force, as opposed to something that was just inside Jean all along, right? Kid, right. But that's the good changes they've made in this movie, even if it didn't pan out really that great. I think their approaches were there. The execution just wasn't as there.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. But as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of Dark Phoenix? And is it on your rewatch list before the Deadpool and Wolverine movie? It's still on that list, so technically you still need to watch it. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Popping Off presents That Recap Show.